Good afternoon, listeners. I'm going to chat a little bit more about grief. I've spoken about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model of grief, which is the acronym DABDA for denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But today I wanted to highlight something that I'm seeing quite a lot in practice with clients, and that is grief and anger. Now, if we understand what is anger, anger is intense sadness with energy. The minute there's no energy, it no longer becomes anger, it becomes sadness. Grief obviously presents itself with massive levels of sadness. And what I'm starting to see more and more in practice is that soon after somebody loses a loved one, a very close loved one, and when I'm thinking very close, I'm thinking like losing a parent, losing a spouse, losing a child or a sibling or somebody that's almost like a immediate family connection. What I'm experiencing is that there's an intense anger that gets manifested and actually gets targeted at a certain individual. So what are we seeing here? We're seeing you lose a loved one, you're in absolute pain, you're in absolute anguish, and you're actually struggling to process the loss. Because what you're focusing on is not the loss and the loss of this person. What you're actually focusing on is your anger towards somebody else. And this somebody else is usually someone that's played quite a poignant role in the whole event leading up to the loss. So what does that mean is if the loss was unexpected and, for instance, it was a traumatic car accident, you'll focus on a certain scene in the car accident, who did what, and you'll hyperfixate on a certain individual that did wrong by you. And your anger and your manifestation of that will channel into that person. If, for example, you've lost a family member from cancer and you're aware of it and the loss took about 3 to 6 months, your anger might be channeled at somebody who navigated that process with you, made decisions with you, didn't make decisions with you. But either way, somebody will become the fixation and the object of your anger. And what I need to tell you is that is unhealthy and that is not okay. And what that actually is a way for you to channel your pain into something that feels like it's letting rid of that pain or letting the pain loose. So if we look at what are you doing? When you experience trauma, and experiencing a loss is a trauma, the right-hand side of your brain, which is responsible for imagination, creativity, heightened emotion, that overfunctions and actually overfires. The left-hand side of your brain, which I say is your lateral side, it's your logical side, your reasoning, your mathematical, systematic side, actually underfires and shuts down, which means then you start feeling very heightened, very intense emotions. And that actually feeds into this anger. And you need to understand that when you are grieving, whoever you are channeling or targeting that anger towards, it is a natural coping mechanism to grief, because grief is a loss and a loss is sadness, and sadness mimics depression. But that person that you're channeling your anger towards is just merely a vessel for pain. It's merely the transporter so that your pain can go somewhere. It's not actually a healthy mechanism to deal with your pain. And what you're actually needing to do is reroute that anger and understand it. What is that anger really distracting me from? How am I allowing this person I'm fixating on to actually impact my grieving process and complicate my grieving process and delay my grieving process? Because if it becomes about this person I'm really angry with, it doesn't really become about the person that you've lost. And grief takes time. There's no universal way to grieve, and there's no universal duration, time length to grieve. So the more you fixate on the person you're angry with, the more you are creating steps to delay your grieving. If you want to grieve and you need to grieve and you need to work towards a place of healing, focus on the person that you've lost. Focus on the meaning that means for your life going forward. Focus on what they inspired in your life and what you've learned from them and how their life was symbolic for you in what way. Find ways to take their life and make it matter still in today. Find rituals for yourself to hold yourself to some level of meaning and purpose. by having specialized rituals in honor of that person. Have special days, whether it's that person that's passed away's birthday or the death anniversary. And in that pain, use your overfiring right-hand side creative brain to be able to find creative ways to honor them and to find creative ways for you to try focus on your grief and your healing. Write poems, write stories, write songs. It's a better way for your right-hand side of your brain that's overfiring right now to settle. Because if you use anger as a way to keep that right-hand side of the brain stimulated, you're not helping the brain to actually soften after the trauma. If you really want to help yourself, surrender and love. It's the way to heal in grief.